Success is simply the result of doing things in a certain way. And one of the things we have to learn in life is how to do specific things in a certain way. And that begins by understanding the laws of life, the principles and the beliefs that we need to develop within ourselves to help us achieve whatever we desire, whatever we hope to have sometime in the future. One of the keys to success is a positive self-image. And that is what we're going to talk about in this short session. A positive self-image. Now, you and I have a self-image. We weren't born with one, but we have one. You come into the world just like I do, without a self-image. We come in like a blank canvas. And we expected that as we journey through life, that we design and we decide and we change and we alter whatever we want our self-image to be. And that allows us to be, to do, to have whatever we want. You see, unlike the animals that have instincts and have the genetic code, we have the power of choice. We have the free will. And we exercise that free will and that power of choice in how we choose to view life. Life operates by laws. One of the fundamental laws of life is the law of attraction. Next to the law of attraction is a law called the law of cause and effect. Simply means if you think in negative terms, you will attract negative results. If you think in positive terms, positive ideas and ways, you will attract positive results into your life. Success is simply a result of your habitual way of thinking. The great writer James Allen said that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Now, that is not being gender specific. As a woman thinks in her heart as well, so is she. The point is this: you and I will attract into our lives whatever we focus on. And your self-image works as a rudder of a ship. It directs your path. It leads you towards the future. Whether it's a future you want or one that you do not want, it guides you in that direction. And there's a reason for that. Your self-image is simply a picture of how you see yourself. This picture comes from various sources: your experiences of the past, the relationships you have, the environment you find yourself to be in regularly, perhaps the results you've obtained through your experiences. All of those form and fashion what we call your self-image. It's like a portrait, a picture of yourself. If you stand in front of a mirror, you see a reflection. The reflection you see is a reflection of that which stands before the mirror. That is your external image. People observe and watch what you do, and they have an idea, perception, an opinion about who you are. But that is an external image. I'm talking about the internal image, the internal governor that directs your life. And that is within, it's in our mind. Now, because we come into life, we start this journey called life without a self-image, that one of the things we have to understand, number one, is where we get our self-image from and how we can change it and how we can alter it. Success is a result. The result of success begins within, not without. It's the way you see yourself on the inside that determines the level of your self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, self-ideal, self-belief, and all of those is what causes you to take certain actions. You see, let me give you what I call a chronology of steps towards success. The thoughts you think create the feelings you have inside. Those feelings have to be expressed, and those feelings are always expressed in actions. The actions you take consistently and repeatedly become habitual. Your habits, over a period of time, becomes part of a lifestyle. That lifestyle becomes part of your character, part of your attitude, and they create the results you want. The results come in two parts: success or failure. So, If you want to be successful, you begin with the end in mind and you work backwards. And you simply say, okay, I want to be successful. I want the results that I want to be successful. What do I have to do? Who do I have to become? What do I need to have? And you walk backwards. And if you walk backwards, what you find that you come back to the same place, which is your thoughts. But, interestingly, what controls your thoughts? Well, your thoughts are controlled at a subconscious level by your self-image. By your self-image. Perhaps you have an image of yourself not being good enough. You don't see yourself as beautiful. It doesn't matter how much you look beautiful on the outside, you're always going to feel that you're not good enough. Dr. Maxwell Maltz was a very successful plastic surgeon back in the 1960s, and he was the one who came up with this concept of self-image. Well, he came up with what I consider to be a really profound impression in people's hearts and minds about the importance of having a positive self-image. Now, as a plastic surgeon, he found that every time he had patients, that came to him for maybe surgical purposes, maybe natural surgical reasons. Some came for maybe cosmetic surgical reasons. But he found that amongst the people that came for surgery, that even when he performed the most successful surgeries that he had ever done, perhaps there was a scar on someone's face, perhaps they didn't like the shape of a particular part of their body, even after he had successfully achieved the desired objective, that the person at the end of the surgical process wasn't happy. They would stand in front of the mirror, they could see the reflection, it was beautiful, it was exactly the way they wanted, but within, they were dissatisfied, they weren't happy. And the more he studied this and observed, he came to a conclusion that you and I have two images of ourselves. One is the external image, which we see when we stand in the mirror, or which other people observe when they look at us. And the second is the internal image. And it is the internal image that controls the level of your success, that controls the level of your happiness and joy and prosperity and good health. Everything begins within. You have a desired goal, perhaps to lose a certain amount of kilograms or pounds. You want to look fit and trim. You want to get big and strong. But if you have the image in your mind that you're not good enough, that you're not going to achieve that goal, I promise you, if that's the self-image you have, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Unfortunately, although you might deviate from that self-image that you have in your mind, it's only a matter of time before you come back to right where you are, right where you believe you are. If you've perhaps taken a long flight, perhaps you've traveled from maybe Australia down to maybe London, or you've traveled from, say, from London to New York. The pilot doesn't fly the airplane for 7, 10, 15, 24 hours, depending on where you're traveling from and where you're traveling to. The pilot doesn't fly the plane all through. They have something called an onboard avionics system. They put on what's called an automatic pilot system. The pilot lets the plane fly itself. The pilot puts in the destination, puts in a flight path and a plan, and then he sits back, or she sits back, and the plane will self-navigate its way towards the destination. Along the journey, as you can imagine, there'll be some wind forces, perhaps some turbulence, and occasionally the plane would deviate from its flight path. But automatically, the onboard system, this automatic pilot system, would recognize a deviation from the flight path, and then it kicks in what's called an automatic correction process. The plane will start to correct itself, and suddenly it's coming back to its flight path, and it stays on its flight path. It deviates again, it's brought back. That onboard system is designed to ensure that the plane does not deviate it from its intended destination or target flight path. You and I have something very similar. The difference is it doesn't have a fancy name. It's simply called self-image. And it doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how much you deviate from that predetermined internal self-portrait or self-image, over time, you come back to right where you are. If you see yourself as successful, you'll always be successful. Why? Because internally, the thoughts that surround and are presented in the screen of your mind are positive thoughts of success and achievement and fulfillment, and thereby you will attract, by the law of attraction and by the law of expectation, you will attract whatever you vividly imagine, sincerely desire, and hold firmly in your heart. If on the other hand, unfortunately, you have negative ideas and negative thoughts about yourself, unfortunately, you will attract a corresponding experience, whether people, whether circumstances, whether events, or whether feelings. So one of the most important keys you need for success is to understand that you need a positive self-image. Now, usually we have what I call 3 key structures to our self-image. Number 1, the person that you really are. This is who you were born to be. This is a potential that is unlimited. This is greatness. This is genius. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. Who you were really born to be. Number 2, who you are today based on your experiences, based on what you've seen, based on the results you've created. Number 3, who you desire to be. This is based on your goals. Now, what's the beautiful part of these 3 structures to the self-image? If you can get all 3 aligned, we call that almost a perfect state. Simply meaning that the person you are right now, the person you hope to be, and the person that you were born to be are almost aligned. That's beautiful. Very few of us will ever get to that state, but we have to keep trying. What we have to focus on is not on trying to change who we were born to be, because that's perfection in itself. It's unlimited potentiality. What we must focus on is continuously try to arrange who we hope to be. The dream, the self is what we call your self-portrait, your self-ideal, the ideal image you have of yourself. We want to align that ideal image with who we were born to be. And once we've aligned both, what we then have to do is move from where we are now and journey in the direction of that desired destination. So if you want to improve your self-image, there are a few things I want to share with you very quickly. Number 1, recognize that you can change, but you can only change by exercising the power of choice. Number 2, recognize that it's not as hard as you think it might be, and that whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. It's all down to what you believe. Number 3, recognize that at any point in time, you can alter, you can change, you can re-engineer your self-image. The process of actually designing a self-image is simple. In practice, it's a little bit harder, but the process of designing one is simple. The first thing you must decide is who do you want to be. We go back to the comment I made about the 3 categories of your self-image. The person you should want to be should be the person you were born to be. And that means you have to study yourself a little bit more. Once you've decided on who you want to be, and you had this as a self-ideal, the next question is to say to yourself, who would I have to be in character to be deserving of that position? And just ask around and look around you and find out if there are any people or anyone perhaps who've achieved that which you seek, that lifestyle, the success, perhaps the happiness, the family relationship, whatever that might be. Look around you and say, are there other people who have achieved that which I seek? They become role models. Your responsibility is not to try and reinvent the wheel. Your responsibility is to apply a principle we call replicability, which means find what works and replicate it. Why? Because success leaves behind clues. And the best way to achieve success is to recognize that there are 2 ways. You can learn from your mistakes, you can learn from mentors. If you learn from your mistakes and your experiences, it takes much longer. If you combine your experiences by learning with and from other people, it takes a lot less time because you're leveraging other people's experiences. Someone can learn how to perhaps be successful and it took them maybe 30 or 40 years. You can study under them and in 3 or 4 years you can achieve the same level of success simply by modeling their actions, their habits and their lifestyle. So you have to simply find a role model, a picture. Sometimes you can come up with something creative. Napoleon Hill talks about the synthetic imagination and creative imagination. And those two are different. It means with creative, it means you come up with a good idea. You say, this is what I want, and it's mine. With synthetic imagination, you simply say, what is out there? What are the ingredients of success? What are the examples from other people's lives? And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to bring it all together, and it's going to be a beautiful level of success because I'm going to use this to form and use them as colors to paint on this masterpiece that I call my portrait. So you can choose. You don't always have to try and come up with something creative yourself. You can always look to other people and replicate their success. And once you've decided what you want and who you want to be, just walk backwards. Ask yourself a simple question. Now, first is, what would they look like? You want a picture of what that person would be. In other words, who you would look like when you've achieved this. Number two, you want to understand how would they live? What would be the habits they live by every day? What would be their routines? Now, you want to take those routines and then you want to make them habitual. You want to make them part of your daily life. Because what you do consistently and daily determines who you become permanently. The secret to your greater future, the secret to achieving your best self, lies in what you do every single day. Your routines, your habits, your goals serve as the golden bridge between where you are today and the future you want. So you try and understand what you have to do daily. What activities do I have to do daily? And then the final part is just to take action. Action will come in two parts. The thought process and the activity process. By thought process, it means every day you should replay in the screen of your mind the picture of the ideal person you want to be. You want to replay through what we call mental rehearsal or mental visualization or through self-talk. You want to reaffirm and reaffirm. The great writer says, faith comes by hearing and hearing and hearing, meaning repetition, repetition, repetition. The more you reaffirm through self-talk, the more you start to believe. As you believe more and more, it starts to reinforce that picture you have of who you want to be. So the first is really mental. It's really about that thought process of re-emerging and reapplying, presenting that picture of who you want to be on the screen of your mind. But the second is by taking action, by disciplining yourself to do consistently and daily that which will lead you towards your desired destination. You see, the difference between success and failure is very simple. It comes down to the word discipline. Successful people do daily and consistently what other people do occasionally. You have to develop the habit of doing consistently the activities and the actions that will lead you towards that destination. The more you do this, the more you combine the thought process and the activity, what you find is very quickly, the picture you once thought about yourself, the person you once thought you were, suddenly starts to fade away. And there's a simple reason for this. Buckminster Fuller said that you cannot change an old idea by trying to get rid of an old idea. In order to create a new idea, that you must come up with something new and fresh. To create change, you must come up with a new idea that renders the old idea obsolete. In other words, you displace the old idea by bringing in a new idea. By reaffirming this new thought process, by taking the actions, what you find in a short while, you have a new image of yourself. The more you're taking action, you go through a loop. First, you then rediscover that you have a potential that is unlimited. When you take action, you get results. The results you get reaffirm the fact that you have what it takes to be and to do and to have whatever you thought you couldn't have before. That reinforcement increases your belief in yourself. That reaffirms this new picture you have of self. It goes back again through another loop. It reaffirms the fact that your potential is really unlimited. It allows you to take more action. You take more action, you get more results, better results. You look at the results and you say, wow, I'm growing, I'm getting better. What happens? It reaffirms your belief. The more you do that, the more you come to a place where you say, I have confidence. Now, where does self-confidence and self-belief come from? Self-image. Self-confidence comes from the picture you have about yourself. Self-confidence is you having confidence that you can do what you said you can do. That comes from experience. You're looking at the results, replaying the results you've had, by the fact that you have a strong belief now, based on the fact that you've taken some actions, you've disciplined yourself, you've paid the price, and you've achieved the results. By reaffirming that, what you find is over time, you have this belief, this aura, this, some people might even call it arrogance, but it's not arrogance. It's simply self-assurance. It's simply being aware of who you are. It's recognizing self-love. It's recognizing that greatness is really within you and is really within your reach. And all you have to do is express and pay the price. By doing that, you get to a point where you find that whatever you try to do becomes successful because you have a methodology that you apply, which is engineered on a self-image that is rich, successful, and beautiful. So if you want to be successful, you need a positive self-image. And recognize this. The self-image you have in all areas of your life are not the same. Now this, I know, might sound a little bit contradictory. You could be a really good scientist. You could be really good with math. You could have an IQ of 160. But you could be the kind of person who, when it comes to relationships, the self-image you have is not as perhaps secure, maybe due to lack of experience. Within a professional scene, maybe you're great. Professionally, you're amazing. You know what you do because you've been reaffirming yourself and you've been taking the steps that I've been talking about. But when it comes to your relationships, maybe when it comes to your health, you're not as beautiful as you would want to be. Maybe the physique you have and the form you have is not what you really like to have. Maybe your relationships have not really always been great. Why? Because in every area of your life, you have to create a foundation for that building or that structure that you want to live and to have. So recognize this. One of the duties that we all have is in all areas of our life, whatever category of life you choose, business, finances, relationships, family, emotional well-being, health, physique, whatever you choose as an area of your life that you want to focus on, you have to engineer a self-image that's tailored to that particular lifestyle you want to have. And I can promise you this, if you have a good self-image, it's almost impossible not to be successful.